We're going to be looking at the passage that was right behind what we looked at last week, which the sermon last week was on love one another, which came out of 1 John chapter 3. So if you would turn to 1 John chapter 3, starting at verse 19 is going to be our text for this morning. Before we read that, the name of the sermon is Obey His Commandments. So that is a theme that we see over and over again. So I didn't turn every page of the Bible. I used modern technology just to ask how many times that phrase or something close to that phrase is used. Now, if you look for obey and commandments, it's in the hundreds, okay? But those two phrases closely together are close proximity is at least 15 times in the New Testament and about 80 to 81 times in the Old Testament, okay? So that's roughly 100 times, right, that we're told obey His commandments. Do you think we should start listening? If God has told us that almost 100 times, right? When you go through obey, and you took it every time, just part of my daily scriptures is I've been trying to read through Leviticus, and that's always a task, right? Reading through that one. And if you look at how many times the Lord comes to Moses and says, tell the people this, right? It's like every chapter starts with almost the same thing. Tell the people they got to do this. That's obey. So we are told to obey. I want to share just a couple scripture references before we get into our main text. In John 14:15, Jesus said, if you love me, you will keep my commandments. Doesn't get any more straightforward than that, does it? If you love me, you will keep my commandments. In Luke chapter 6, he says, why do you call me Lord, Lord, and do not what I tell you? Do we have people calling on the Lord, calling Him Lord, Lord, calling Him their God, yet they refuse to obey His word? That's exactly what Jesus is making reference to here in Luke chapter 6. Then in Deuteronomy in chapter 11 it says, love the Lord your God and keep His commandments, His laws, keep His requirements, His laws, and His commandments always. Always. That means while we're here, while we're breathing, we are called to keep His commandments. Now, the passage that we're going to look at this morning in 1 John chapter 3, again, a follow-up from last week, and this is one of those passages that really, you can try to preach it all together, but it's too much, so following up is a good second sermon based on this. So 1 John chapter 3, verse 19. By this, and I'll talk about in just a moment what he's referencing, we shall know that we are of truth and reassure our heart before Him. For whenever our heart condemns us, God is greater than our heart, and He knows everything. Believe if your heart does not condemn us, beloved, if your heart does not condemn us, we have confidence before God. And whatever we ask, we receive from Him, because we keep His commandments and do what pleases Him. And this is His commandment, that we believe in the name of His Son, Jesus Christ, and love one another, just as He has commanded us. Whoever keeps His commandments abides in God, and God in him. And by this we know that He abides in us by the Spirit whom He has given us. Let's bow our heads in prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, dear Lord, put on our hearts that we would take your word seriously. That we would look at these passages and see that we are commanded. We are commanded to do certain things. We're commanded to not do certain things. But the greatest commandment here is that we would